So Tommy, you're now coming out of the court. What has happened?
Only accredited journalists, when they say accredited, only government-supported journalists were allowed to report on the second half of the trial, which means no one, I guess, out here, because you're not going to hear it from the mainstream media, because I've looked through the mainstream media's reporting on the case this morning. It's insane. It's fucking insane.
They're lying.
All the unlawful stuff they've done, all the illegal stuff they've done, and not one part of it has been reported on. It's mad. Which is the need for people like Ezra and other people who have flown over from Canada to come and report on this. Unfortunately, he's been gagged today from when we went back in. No one else other than the government control, which what is that? That's communism, no? Only government controlled media are allowed to report on what's going on inside the courtroom. And it's meant to be about fair and open justice for people to understand. The reason why we need citizen journalists is because these fucking frauds don't report. We've seen that by the reporting this morning. We've seen that. But an officer has accepted this afternoon, which you wouldn't have heard, that he held me unlawfully because he was supposed to have done certain things that he didn't do, and then there was 3 different things that he was lawfully had to do that he didn't do in order to detain me under Terrorism Act. It's not like we're stopping you for a quick check in your car. We're nicking you for terrorism. We're using terrorism legislation to detain you and pump around the whole world that you're being charged under the Terrorism Act. You better make sure your shit's in order. And none of it's in order. The reason for detaining me wasn't in order. They just made up as they went along. What we then found out is they made up stuff today that's not in their statements. Do you know how many times we've asked them for disclosure and they've refused it? So we've gone back saying, what did you do for an hour and a half? Because they detained me, there was a 40-minute gap, then there's another hour and a half gap. What were you doing in that time? From stopping me originally, what was going on? We know what was going on. It was going up the ladder to the top, yeah? And they were making decisions. But they didn't make any notice, and even though we asked them, what were you doing? They refused to answer. And then today, we were taking information from other organisations. Well, we've asked you that multiple times. You have to give us disclosure, which they haven't given. They didn't give. So now there's been another application to make the judge aware. We've asked all this information, then they've brought shit up today in court where there's no evidence of it. There's no paperwork trail, there's no email trail, there's nothing. And then he started making up, do you know what his reason was? Islamophobia. Islamophobia. What even is Islamophobia? They're taking it from the Labour government's Islamophobia bill. You talk about Islam, we're going to nick you under terrorism. That's it. Anyway.
And back tomorrow.
And back tomorrow for the verdict. Let's hope the judge gives us something to have a bit more faith in judges in the UK for. Last time I was in this court, I got a positive result from a judge. I wish I was tried by a jury, but I think after the judge listening to that absolute facade of a shit show of legal corruption and bullshit from a police force which detained someone under the Terrorism Act within 30 seconds of seeing who I was. And then they've tried to make up and wrote statements 6 months later, 9 months later. Why didn't you write this at the time? Why you wrote all of the officers trying to get their ducks in order? That's what they were trying to do a year later. Well, why did you detain them? And then they're making up all the reasons, so let's see what happens today.
Has the trial finished today, Tommy?
Yeah, turn the camera around for a sec. You're a member of the press, you was in there today.
Sorry, Wendell.
You're a member of the press, you was in there today. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's no jury. That's only for juries. There's not contempt. That's a lie. That's a lie. No, you're a member of the press. Well, I've looked at your reporting today. I've looked at your reporting. Absolutely. I've looked at your reporting. I've looked at your reporting today. Why don't you get off? Why don't you
Coward! So they're running away
the
from
mainstream
you.
media, yeah? He is sat in that court case. We'll see what verdict we get tomorrow. Not one of them has reported any of the unlawful stuff.
And then they went and told on the other reporters.
And you know what? He went to the judge. He went to the judge to make sure Ezra was stopped reporting. He did. He was the grass. He went as a member of the press to point out that he's sitting in the public gallery and he's reporting on this case. To prevent him reporting so that the only narrative you get is from them. Fast car, cash in his car. Why do I have cash in the car? Because we clicked it at a demonstration the day before and I can't bank in the UK, you monks. Anyway, they mentioned about...
Tommy Robinson.
Oh, hi everybody, Ezra Levant. As you can see, court is done. We're at the Westminster Magistrates Court in London. I don't know how many hours I've been up. I flew over from Toronto, really got maybe 2 hours sleep on the plane, came straight here from the airport because traffic's so crazy. Haven't gone to the hotel yet, but had a very interesting day in court, listening to the police try and excuse why they nicked or arrested Tommy under the Terrorism Act, given that he's not a terrorist. And to watch 4 different police officers try and scramble to answer that question, one of them saying, well, 10 years ago he was with the English Defence League, but yes, I know that that is now defunct for 10 years. Well, then why, what? And by the way, the English Defence League was never a terrorist group, never regarded as an extremist group. So there's so many weird after the fact excuses that these cops have cooked up. And what's extra weird is that they took weeks or even months to do it. So they had their first witness statement, and they didn't in that put sufficient facts forward to justify arresting and holding Tommy under the Terrorism Act. So they continuously sort of patched up. They changed their original story months later. It was really bizarre police work, bizarre until you remember that a central mission of the court system in the UK now is simply to get Tommy Robinson. Now, I enjoyed court because I feel like I'm in my milieu. I used to be a lawyer, so I understand some things. I'm friends with Tommy, so I know his side of the story. I'm a good typist, so I can type things fast, and my tweets cumulatively had almost 7 million views until the judge ordered me to stop live tweeting, and I was confused by that. But someone next to me in the gallery said that a BBC reporter had complained to the court that I was tweeting from the court, as were so many other people, but only I was the subject of the BBC's complaint. That's the 3rd time the BBC has interfered with my journalism. Dominique Casciani, a BBC journalist, actually reported me to the police once for my tweeting. I'm not even kidding. That's a true story. And then on another occasion, he interrupted a trial to complain about my tweets. Both of those were laughed in his face. But this 3rd one here today, the BBC complaining about me, tomorrow morning I have to present my credentials to the judge. And I told him in Canada we don't have, there is no government regulation. Well, I guess there is for a certain government grant, but there's no press card. That's just not really a thing, although I am a member of the Independent Press Gallery. Anyways, I'll talk to the judge in the morning and I'll try and convince him that I've been live tweeting cases in the UK for a decade. It would be sort of weird to stop now, but that just shows you how pernicious their media party is here. I mean, it's bad enough that they lie about Tommy, of course they do, but to try to stop other journalists from telling the story is extra incredible. However, you know what, I'm seeing something here that I saw with Tamara Leach's trial in Ottawa on October 7th, which is what I saw on September 13th, Tommy's big rally, and it's that citizen journalism has just grown exponentially in the last few months. I mean, where once I would be covering something like this and there would be me and maybe 1 or 2 other citizen journalists, now there's dozens. There's huge scrums, and the cumulative reach is enormous. So I'm actually more optimistic than ever about the media part of the story, which is why the left is so adamant on bringing in hate speech laws and the Online Harms Act, as it's called here, or the Online Safety Act. I think that's what they call it here in the UK. And in Canada, they're doing the same thing. They're bringing back the Online Harms Bill. There's a lot of attempts to censor, but between Elon Musk strengthening Twitter and, I don't know, just a whole new crop of individual citizen journalists, I'm actually feeling pretty good about things. If I had to predict how things are going to end tomorrow, if it was anyone else in the world, I'd say Tommy will be acquitted and the police will be chastised by the courts for abusing the Terrorism Act. But it's Tommy Robinson. Oh, I mean, just take a look at how many cops there are here. It's just absurd. I mean, the police believe their own BS about how dangerous Tommy is. Like, seriously, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's probably, oh, and then there's more cops down there. Do you see that? Like, there's at least 20 cops here. Yeah, Tommy Robinson's not your problem. The hundreds of thousands of Hamas supporters who marched literally yesterday in the UK, that's your problem. And that's, you know, in fact, the policing here today is a microcosm of what's going on in the UK. It is easier to arrest Tommy Robinson because he's not going to blow you up. It's easier to arrest Tommy Robinson because he doesn't flee the country. In fact, he comes back to the UK from overseas to face justice. So it's easier to push him and his supporters around rather than take on the 43,000 jihadis who are under surveillance in the UK. Like, think about that, 43,000 would-be terrorists that we know of, let alone hundreds of thousands of terrorist sympathizers. Yeah, of course they're going to go after Tommy. It's the path of least resistance. But that's not the right thing, and that's one of the reasons why the UK is in such jeopardy. Anyways, I'll do my best tomorrow to convince the judge to let me live tweet. It's sort of crazy that I can't even type things. Like, I'm not taking photos, I'm not taking videos, I'm just sitting there typing my thoughts. It's so, even that in itself is sort of an echo of the UK thinking that they can control ideas. And I just don't think that's the way of a free country like the United Kingdom. Anyways, I'm a guest here and I'm a guest in the court, so I'll do what the judge says, but I will make an effort to convince them that freedom of speech should live in 2025. All right, I'll have more on this. If you want to support my journalism, which is not government funded, go to TommyTrial.com. We'll see you tomorrow.